Susan Millington, and I'm the Head of Programme Management for the Centre of Excellence in Network Rail.
Tremendous, good, good. So we're going to start. We're going to talk about the lessons learned program that you were kind of very involved in setting up at Network Rail, which must be now, I don't know, how many years ago is it now? Probably
Almost
3 years.
2
2 years ago. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, yes. So let's start at the beginning and just tell me a bit about the whole genesis for this program. What was it that started it, and how did you kind of get together any kind of business case for a lessons learned system?
Well, I've worked in the industry for over 27 years now, and in different roles, from right the way through from development to design to delivery, and I noticed that a lot of the conversations I'm having were very similar. We were going through the same issues, we were having the same conversations, and so there was definitely a commonality. We keep making the same mistakes and going down the same roads, and I guess as I progress in years, that I'm mindful about how my go-to experts are disappearing. So we were losing a lot of that corporate knowledge. So I set up a community over time where I knew there were people that could answer certain questions on certain things, and they would always have an experience of or knew enough to work through an answer, and that was disappearing as well. So it was stemmed from repeating conversations and depleting expertise, where it was evident we weren't thinking about retaining that corporate knowledge. So I recognised that there was a gap. A lot of people talked about lessons learned in the industry, and a lot of people were doing bits and pieces of it, but it was very much working in silos. So I took it upon myself, and I organised a couple of workshops from representatives around the business, different locations, different disciplines, and we talked through what was already going on in the industry, how people were working it, how people were capturing it, and I took the best of each of them and developed a process. It was a very simple process. We didn't have at this point in time, we didn't have a sponsor, we didn't have a budget, it was just time. So we put together a process which was a logical one, and that was about what triggers a lessons learned, and then how you process that through, and then what to do with that knowledge once you've captured it, and that was the important thing. And then from that, I contacted one of our executives, our chief finance officer, and asked him to be the exec sponsor. And he gave me a challenge that to prove to him in 3 months the value of it, which was a challenge on the basis that I had a process. It hadn't been piloted or rolled out, and I didn't have a repository. So I worked with our internal IT systems, and it was a very, very basic SharePoint platform system of repository where we could capture that data, and we built that and piloted it, and we got some really, really positive feedback.
Yeah.
And so that was demonstrated to Jeremy Westlake, our chief finance officer, and he agreed to sponsor it. So that meant we could go national.
Yes.
Which is where the value is of that.
Yeah.
If people are working in silos, it's not a shared lesson, is it?
Yes, yes. I mean, I can imagine that on the one hand, Jeremy's challenge may have been, not totally welcome. On the other hand, he's given you a kind of quest. He's given you 3 months. So he's given you a direction, because something like lessons learned, it's such a, when you start, it's such an amorphous theme and subject, and how are we going to do it? How do we? So in a sense, he's he's given you the opportunity to create the first steps on the ladder, as to, well, how do we actually set this going, and how do we kind of initiate this?
Absolutely. I think without the challenge, because we didn't want to overthink it. It had to be basic because we weren't, it wasn't some big fanfare. We didn't want it to be complex. And given time and the way we usually do things, we'd overthink it and complicate it. And then it would need to be perfect before you launched it. Well, actually, this did exactly what it did on the tin. It was a process I was trying to install within the business, not the database.
Yes.
So by having a very simple database with the process, and the ability to capture data in different ways, such as videos, not just the text. It was more suitable for various people who don't necessarily want to sit and type. We were capturing lessons from iPhones and such like that as well.
Yeah, really interesting. So you were, I mean, I'm sure you were doing this deliberately, but in many ways you were following a kind of classic prototype, experiment, learn, move on kind of
review
cycle. Yeah,
absolutely. So it was that plan, do, review, and then and exchange, and then go again. Yeah.
So what were some of the big obstacles in at the start?
The ones for me were I was working on my own in my own time, so it was kind of a time and a resource issue. And then all the people that I was talking to and the getting the data, the information from the workshops and people around the business, it was just time. And then when we were looking to launch it, we hit COVID. So it was so we didn't have a big fanfare launch, which is unfortunate. But but because it was so positively received, we had the gravitas. So it was word of mouth, and we trained champions. So we kind of did a stealth-like filtering into the business, where one system, and then communicated the success of that. So we've used this, and there's value to it. Look, if you use this system, this is what it could do for you. So it was very much a soft launch rather than the traditional communications campaign that we had planned. So I think the biggest thing for me was time and resource.
Yes, yeah. That's interesting. I mean, lessons learned, particularly as an approach. There's plenty of organizations that bear the scars of trying to implement lessons learned, and I've talked to project managers and who've said, I'd rather chew my foot off than use this lessons learned system, because it just adds bureaucracy, it takes time, it really doesn't benefit. And I'm intrigued that you managed to catch hold of enthusiasm, at least within part of the organization, that kind of enabled you to develop some momentum. And any thoughts as to why was that? Is that because of Network Rail, the way the organization works, or is there something else?
I think there was probably, if I reflect now, there was probably many layers to that. It's always beneficial to have an executive sponsor. And I think the fact that you've got that name, that position supporting you, means that people will look at it. At least you've got somebody's time. It gets you in the door, and then it also says this is what the business wants, and it empowers you to utilize and to change and to look at processes. So that was absolutely a key thing. And it also got the database built very quickly, and as I said, I had no budget, so I was working on goodwill at this point, and I don't think I would have had as much goodwill if I didn't have the name behind me. So that was a really important thing. The other thing would be, I kept it simple, drop down menus, asking 5 key questions, the 5 whys sort of thing. Kept it very much in line with the standards that we would normally want to ask. But and also it's follow the money. If ever you're going to change something, follow the money chain. So on our investment panels, we change it, and again, having the chief finance officer, like I planned it, having the chief finance officer as the key sponsor meant that we changed our investment panels process, where you have to go there and prove that you've looked at lessons learned on similar projects, and then come back on your application, on your business case. You would say, what lessons have you researched and learned that you're not going to take forward into this project? And so, or best practices, what have you learned from others? So you won't get any money unless you're actually looking at corporate knowledge, and that's really important as well, because it encourages that it's not just about putting information in, it's about how we use that information and how we, look to change, look to improve our processes.
Yeah. I mean, there's I think there's almost always an element of push in these kinds of change management and these kind of change processes, because we know that if you build a lessons learned system, it's like the kind of field of dreams. They won't come. So you have to create simple processes and simple catalysts that generate and create the habits, so they get used to actually doing that. And if that's tied to the organization's, the main processes, then so much the better. So do you want to describe the system as it is now? What does it do? What does it look like?
So it has a basic database structure, so that there are various information in there that you can search by. It has a Google search engine, so you can search through just multiple words that may be suitable for your project. Construction safety, signalling, for instance, the railway, and you can see you can have multiple elements in your project, and it will search for results in that regard. So that was quite important. So it's quite easy to find your lessons that are similar to your project. But you to put a deposit in, if you like, there's a format, and it's got drop-down menus, and you can search and you put information in drop down, what profession you're in, what discipline you're in, what grip stage you're in. That's a part of that project life cycle. What kind of contract. So all the information, and it's dropped down. So if you search through a project number that's already on a database, it links to that. It automatically puts the project title and contact details in there for you. And then you have a contact detail. So if you need to contact someone where you want to ask more information or have a discussion about that project, you can follow that up.
Great. I mean, that's tremendous. I mean, I can see in what you're describing, you immediately provide some context, so it's related, or often related, to a specific project, so people can understand the context of the lesson. It sounds highly searchable, so that the knowledge is very accessible. And then I really like that point that you make about, who can you talk to about this, because often these things, when they're working, they raise more questions than they answer. They kind of encourage you to go and find out. You identify where you need some more knowledge, because it's kind of, oh, actually I need to know something here. In terms of that process, I mean, you talked a little bit about the process for putting content in. Have you a sense of how it's changed the way that people communicate with each other? Are you finding people reaching out and talking to people from previous projects on what they've done as a result of using the system?
I know from looking at the usage that we have, the usage of the system has increased, both new users logging in, the amount of people we've logged in, and the amount of the new lessons that we've registered. I don't know how many conversations on the back of that people have followed through and contacted.
Yes.
But what the system allows you to do is the discipline that relates to you. So in project management, I can search through, I can get a report through Power BI, and look at all the lessons that have come in and the percentage that are project management related. And then if I see a trend forming, I can see that there is something that I need to change. So at the moment we are looking, because of a lot of it is about our life cycle, and I'm not sure it exactly relates to the life cycle, but it's always perceived to relate to the life cycle. So at the moment we're working on, and part of that is we are working on a new life cycle within Network Rail.
Okay.
So it's having a look at what people perceive in your discipline, and you can change that. You can make it easier for them. So it's for me as a discipline lead, it's been really helpful to see what people are saying, what people are struggling with, real or no, because that's either a briefing required or a standard update or a process change. But be mindful of that, because it's these lessons that the data that's been put in, it's real, but it's what you do with that information that will make this work or no.
Yeah. Okay. Excellent. And do you want to give me a couple of examples of the kind of things that you've learned as an organization about your projects as a result of what you've done?
Well, I think a lot of it, a lot of it is communications and working in silos. So the lack of communication between projects and silos that we tend to experience in whilst we're setting up our projects. The biggest thing, and we're rewriting a standard at the moment, is requirements as well. So if you spend time and effort at the beginning of a project, understanding where you're going, what the end results are, what the benefits are expected, then spend more time there understanding what it is. Speak to your project team, from the sponsors to the project team, and that is a huge area where we need to be when we need to improve. So yeah, we're rewriting our standards at the moment, but that is quite common. That was one of the most common things, being clear at the outset. And I'm not talking about spending a lot of time there, because we don't want to do that. We don't want to waste unnecessary time overthinking, but we do want to be clear.
Yeah.
And the benefits.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, you've got a couple of things there. I mean, you've got some immediate kind of hard solutions where people are actually getting knowledge out of the system, but then you've got this kind of softer element, which is the behaviors where you're encouraging greater conversation across silos and at the start of projects, and so simply by using the system, you're encouraging people to talk to each other. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, hopefully it is a conduit for that, because now the way we're organized, we've got 5 individual companies effectively with the 5 regions. Each of those regions have managing directors, and they have delivery directors, and they are almost autonomous, although you have this central base where they all fit in, but they do have their own businesses. So having a centre to bring all that knowledge together and to formulate that and to guide the business and the industry, I think is really key.
Excellent. I have two final questions for you. The first one is it's a bit of a tough question in some ways, but if you look back to what you did, what would you do differently if given the option? And maybe you'd say, oh, I don't want to do this again, but what would you do differently if you were starting again today?
So today, if I started this again today, I'd probably have once the concept was there, I'd probably go earlier for my sponsor. I think I waited until I had more of a formulation rather than speaking to the sponsor earlier. So getting the sponsor earlier, and therefore it would be likely that I would have got a team together earlier, because now I've recruited a knowledge team, and that means that every single day I've got the people working on this 24 hours. That is their role, and I think bringing that earlier maybe would have got the momentum earlier.
Yeah, that's really interesting, Sue. I mean, I if I'm playing devil's advocate, I'd suggest that you've kind of highlighted one of the challenges with learning is that we tend to post-rationalize, because I don't know whether you're saying that in the knowledge that actually your sponsor was really responsive. At the time, of course, you couldn't know whether he was going to say, go away, you're wasting my time, and maybe, you know, if you had gone earlier, you would have got that response. Who knows, but
exactly.
that's interesting.
It worked out, and I guess the only benefit of me going earlier, the benefit of me going when I did, is I had a formulated argument. I had something to sell, and the benefits were worked out. So yes, you're absolutely right. If I hadn't have gone that, there's why are you speaking to me about this? So there is that danger, but equally, on the other hand, it would have gone quicker. But sometimes that's not always the right thing. Formulate it so you know it inside. And by the time I'd recruited, I knew exactly the type of team I wanted, the people I wanted to run it.
Yeah, interesting. So my last question is really, there'll be a lot of people out there who are thinking about something similar to this, and I wondered if there's one piece of advice for them. What would you say to them?
To set this up, you need support. If you're going to set this up, the key things is that you need executive support, because you need it to be a business-wide process. Otherwise, you're not getting the full learning. You're not getting that full benefit of the corporate knowledge. So definitely need a good sponsor, of preferably executive level, and then keep it simple. Absolutely keep it simple, so people can use it and they haven't got to overthink, and it hasn't got to take too much of their time, because this, or seen as an additional thing they have to do. Embed it in their day-to-day. It's part of that project. It is your day job. It's not additional to. So yeah, those would be my key things. And look, nothing in that you ever do, really, very few things I should say, are ever that new. So horizon scan, take time to have a look what other people have done, but understand the problem you're trying to solve, and then understand where you want to go, what you want that to look like, so you can map out your journey, and not get lost in go down rabbit holes, because it would take you twice as long unnecessarily if you do that.